just to start things off, just to get warmed up, like, is there any pressing questions you guys have just right off the bat that you want to know? And also, introduce yourself. Anything? Anybody? Anyone want to go first? Or am I going to have to call on someone?
I'll start, I guess. I'm Slaying Milk. I actually main a healer on Xbox, and I also play on PC.
All right, great.
I'm Hand of the Gods, and I have about 4 healers, and I've been playing on PC for about 2.
Okay.
4 healers that's child's stuff. I have 9.
Yes, I have a healer on every class.
Actually, I have more than 9. I have 9 plus 5. 14.
That is more than me, so props to you.
5 of those are on E.
Oh, okay. So you multiple servers. Ooh. Would anybody else like to introduce themselves?
I'm Freak. I've been playing since 2014, and I too have about 9 healers that I rotate.
Nice. Okay.
No tank love here. My others are tank.
There's one at the bottom of the selection list.
I'm Nephis. Okay. I'm just here for the college credit.
So, great. Awesome to have all of you here. So right now I'm on my Warden Healer. I do believe that the Warden Healer is probably the strongest healer in the game right now, but the Templar and Warden combination is pretty strong. I still feel like in this patch you need both in the group, for the Templar for Poddle, but the Warden has minor vulnerability and the minor toughness, and then also just a ton of other buffs that are great for a group. So the next part is, right now I'm wearing a very standard healer combination, which is Bogdan, Yorvold, Olo. I prefer to put Olo on the back bar because it's easier to control the Olo placement. And there's so much moving around in trials based on mechanics that if I can really refine and place the Olo well, that increases DPS, which is very important. And Olo is one of the sets. It's a very standard healer set along with Yorvold. And I like Yorvold on a Warden because it increases all of the buffs that they have, at least most of them. And it also increases, if you look in the tooltip of Green Balance, you'll see that when you heal yourself or an ally under 40% health with the Green Balance ability, you gain Major Mending, increasing your healing done by 25% for 4.2 seconds. Now that's with Yorvold on. So in moments where you need intense healing under 40%, I mean, that's a huge buff, and you get it for 4.2 seconds. So, for example, in a scenario like Sunspire, this is a great passive, and Yorvold's on top of that is great because if you're Ice Tomb healing, you get that extra second where you can heal your allies through the Ice Tomb. So another great thing, since we're going over scenarios, is the Black Rose Restoration Staff. You don't necessarily need effective. To me, it doesn't really matter. What you want is that Major Vitality to your target for 4.2 seconds, increasing the healing taken on your target by 30%. So, again, with the scenario that I'm just giving you guys right now, your Ice Cage healing, and the target is your ally is in the Ice Tube. You pop the Black Rose on them on your front bar, and then you use I would suggest the Bursting Vines. And in a previous patch, people were using the Mend Wounds to light attack weave in between using a burst heal. But this patch, since like recovery is not an issue for healers because we don't have to spam orbs, and the heal, so you don't have to put as much recovery into your jewelry enchantments. You can put some spell damage enchantments, and if you alter your build in the right way, you can put the Ritual Mundus, you can put the Mage Mundus, the Apprentice Mundus instead of the Atronach. And welcome to class. You're a little bit late. So I'm gonna have to give you detention later.
Oh dear.
I'm just kidding. So also in I think it was either this patch or last patch, they buffed the crap out of Bursting Vines. And honestly, Ice Cage healing has become much easier, in my opinion, because you just pop the Black Rose Staff, and then it takes about 2 to 3 Bursting Vines to get them out. And again, with the major mending from passives, you put that on top of the Black Rose, that's more healing received. They are out so fast, you don't even have to worry about it. One drawback to being Ice Cage Healer is that some people get in the way, and like you'll end up like casting Healing Ward. Oh, I forgot to mention this. Like you got to have Healing Ward on your bar. I would suggest Healing Ward. It's a little bit riskier, but I would suggest Healing Ward because they also buff the crap out of that too. So you pop that, couple vines, they're out, and then you move on to the next person. So are there any questions so far?
I've never used the vines before.
Okay. Do you have like a question about that?
So I would replace the on your bar there, the number 2 spot with the burst.
Yeah. Okay. So there are a couple options you could do. This is where it gets like a little bit complicated. This is where you need to coordinate with your other healer, because they'll need to run like Ellie Drain if necessary, and other skills like I would always encourage the Warden to have Blood Altar slotted, because the Warden gets everyone was going to get minor toughness with Altar up. So sometimes I've run double resto so that I can get some extra healing power from my back bar for Ice Cage healing. But again, it's probably not necessary to do that. Plus, Blockade is just so, you need that because it procs your enchants like nonstop. And so I would put maybe Budding Seeds on your front bar or the back bar, and potentially replace. I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard thing to replace. I would probably can Radiating Regen or Enchanted Growth, but you need that too because it gives Minor Intellect and Minor Endurance. Like the Warden has just like so many skills now that you need to have slotted. So it's kind of up to you, like what you want to sacrifice at that point. But I would definitely put the Bursting Vines on the healing bar so that you get that extra healing to get them out. And you want to keep the Budding Seeds because it's a huge heal over time for your group, and it also is a synergy to proc Alkosh, which is the main purpose of Budding Seeds, in my opinion. It gives an extra synergy for the tank, and it's also a huge heal when it goes off. And that's kind of I see the Budding Seeds as an equivalent to the Ritual from the Templar, because the Ritual is a unique synergy on its own. It's the Purify synergy, and it's also a huge like AoE heal over time, and the Budding Seeds serves the same purpose. So you need that. And you also need Combat Prayer, obviously, for the Minor Berserk. You need Healing Springs or Illustrious Healing. And I would suggest always putting the Expansive Frostcloak on because it gives everyone major resolve, and that's extremely helpful for defense. And then you need orbs, and you definitely need Fetcher Infection because now they cast the target will get minor vulnerability, which leads me to a set that we can talk about that's now sort of dead, is Infallible Aether.
Oh wait, can I ask a question?
Yes,
sorry,
of course.
Before we sort of pass it. Okay, so you know the Bursting Vine, doesn't the Altar and the Bursting Vine give the same buff? Like, would you have both on at the same time, unless if you're doing the?
No, you're confusing Bursting Vines with Living Trellis.
Oh, you're right. I am. Okay, sorry. Thanks. Okay, continue on.
Yes. Yeah, go for it.
So until this point, I've never healed VSS hard mode. I've done a lot of healing more with Templar, just because that's the healer that I've had for a lot longer. But I have been told that wardens usually get put more into the group healer than the cage healer. Is that maybe like a knowledge kind of difference, or is it just because we've never made it to hard mode at this point?
Well, go ahead, Time.
Wardens are, because of the green balance passive, where you gain major mending when you heal someone under 40%. And also because Bursting Vines is a really nice burst heal, Wardens are better suited to cage healing than Templars.
Yeah,
you can use whichever you want, really.
You can. It's the only risk with using a Templar is that the Breath of Life might hit someone else. But in my experience, it's been totally fine. So it's kind of neither here nor there, but I think the Warden is the most optimal. And you can aim the Bursting Vines right at the cage. And if the cages are far apart, you can aim it and just be right there. And they'll get the burst heal right away. So I would highly suggest using a Warden for ice cages. Even on like normal vet, you can use like any healer. Like I've healed ice cages on normal vet with every healer in the game, including Dragon Knight, and it's been fine.
Okay, and my question is, if I don't have the Black Rose Resto staff, I would still want to slot the vines in?
Yeah, for sure. And I haven't used the Black Rose staff in some situations, and it's also been fine on normal vet. On hard mode, I would definitely use the Black Rose staff, though, because the healing debuff in the cages is worse. I'm not sure about the math on that. Do you guys know, TimeWizard or Nephis, like the difference there?
All I know.
The dot, or?
Yeah, there's like when you go into the cage in hard mode, I think the debuff is worse than on normal mode.
You get a damaging dot over time, and I believe the person that jumps into the tomb, they get automatically brought down to like 20% of their health, and the dot ticks for like 5k a tick. So the Black Rose, at least when I've healed them, has helped out immensely, but I've done it without it too by accident.
I personally haven't felt a difference when I healed in hard mode.
Okay.
It's just one more ice gauge, but maybe, probably.
Yeah.
It's definitely worse in hard mode because I accidentally had my setup without a Black Rose staff, and I couldn't reliably heal people out heal the double tomb out. Well, on normal, I've done it without a Black Rose and had no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. So,
thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I know Freak wanted to talk about VCR. Shall we dive into that a little bit more? Or does anyone have questions like so far?
I just have, it's probably a very basic question, but I just made my warden a couple weeks ago, so I'm still trying to learn the playstyle differences and kind of the equivalents. So Burst and Vines is kind of the Templar, or sorry, the Warden equivalent of Breath of Life, from what I understand.
Not. I mean, the healing power is pretty equal, but I don't use Bursting Vines often at all, except when I Ice Tomb heal. I would say the equivalent is Enchanted Growth, because you can aim it, and now with a couple patches ago, they made it so you need to aim Breath of Life as well. It's not, it doesn't hit people behind you. You have to, there is a radius. And I'm not on my Templar right now, but I believe that the radius is very similar. And again, with the passives from Enchanted Growth, you're going to heal people plus a crit heal. You're going to heal people almost all the way to full health. I've seen it before. So Enchanted Growth, I believe, would be equivalent to Breath of. And also, if you have the Budding Seeds down, that lasts for 6 seconds. And that is a group burst heal that will that is very effective as well.
I love that Budding Seeds.
Yeah, it's great. You can activate it at any time, and then it bursts on its own after 6 seconds. So, and then you can aim it as well, which is fantastic. So, shall we dive into VCR?
Sounds good.
Okay. So, what questions do y'all have about VCR healing?
I had to finally push the talk. So, in the runs that I've been doing, I'm the Kite Healer, and I've heard of. I mean, I've been told like several different things about how to sustain in the back, not so much magica-wise, but health-wise. And my issue that I've been running into is just pretty much there's several cases where I've gotten crushing along with a bar swap and then ice all at the same time.
Are you you're kite healing as a warden, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
So are there any like methods back there, for instance, like I know keeping up expedition and whatnot, but like is there possibly using Race Against Time over Wings?
Well, Wings and Race Against Time will give you the same amount of speed. And I totally empathize with you. I've been in that situation. That is a killer situation to be in for the Kite Healer. That's the most difficult situation. And like what I've done is you got to will yourself through it and just spam your Enchanted Growth, roll dodge, just do everything you can to just stay out of the crushing darkness. And it's just kind of one of those situations you have to just survive as best as you can. And another thing, if you're having trouble with that, is slot a shield like Harness Magica. That is extremely helpful. And then if you want, you can also slot what I've done before, which is Healing Ward or a Ward Ally. Because a Ward Ally will give you a shield guaranteed, whereas Healing Ward might, again, it might hit someone else and not you. But also another thing I've observed about Healing Ward is that it can be spammed. So if it hits someone else, you can cast it again, and it could hit you too. Another thing about survivability in that situation, I mean, if you really need to, you can pop a barrier. And you can also, another niche skill is Light's Champion here, Panacea, and that will also save you. But the risk with that is that that can also hit someone else. Because if you look at the tooltip, it says healing you or a nearby ally. So you just got to be really careful about what you choose. Also, another thing that I've used as a Kite Healer is Troll King, and it increases your health recovery by a lot. Increases your healing done and your health recovery. When you heal yourself or an ally, if they are still below 50% health, their health recovery is increased by over 1,500 for 10 seconds. That's a huge buff to your health recovery. Another option would be, I wouldn't suggest this for VCR, but Earthgore. Maybe other people have had different experiences, but when you heal yourself or an ally that is under 50% health, you obviously get a giant heal from this. But they nerfed it in a couple patches ago, where it only heals one person. And again, that could hit someone else if you're healing. Another great skill in VCR, and they also buff this, is Radiating Regen. You need to always have that on yourself as a Kite Healer, in my opinion, because it is probably one of the strongest heals in the game right now. And that'll also just like boost your healing like crazy and get you out of that situation. And the big thing about that frost, getting the frost, is that it slows you the F down. And you just gotta just do everything you can to keep yourself alive. So I hope that answers your question. And I would encourage anyone else to share their input on what they've done with Kite Healing in that situation. Like TimeWizard, what have you done in that situation?
So if I get Frost Kite, regardless of Nar Swap, what I'm gonna want to do is Enchanted Growth is your friend. You want to spam the shit out of that.
Yes.
And also put a spring down and then roll into the spring is very helpful. You're getting immunity and healing at the same time, which is super. And you're getting away from the crushing darkness.
You're saying healing springs?
Yeah, illustrious.
So yeah, let's say you get Crushing Darkness, throw a Healing Spring, and just roll into it. The Crushing Darkness is, right here, and you can run around it, Radiating Regen, and then just spam the crap out of Enchanted Growth, which is it's such a ridiculous thing, but just do it, spam it, you'll survive.
Yeah, no, that makes more sense. I mean, one thing I have neglected was maintaining ground heals on myself, because I'm normally, flipping around and making sure the group always has budding and healing springs on. But definitely, taking it off a second so I can live is a better trade-off.
Well, also, if you want to keep the minor toughness up as a warden, just pop a Blood Altar. Also, what I've done as a Kite Healer, if one of the tanks should have Blood Altar, you can synergize with the Blood Altar to save your ass.
I have a question. I usually use Overflowing Altar. Is it better to use Blood Altar?
Oh,
Blood Altar is just the unmorphed version.
Oh, okay. I use the green one. Is the green one okay?
Oh,
yeah, the green one's that's ideal for CR.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely, because the healing is much more. Other people can synergize it. The tank can synergize with it, and again, it keeps minor toughness up. It's the most reliable way to keep minor toughness up.
Okay.
Oh, and then going back to Blood Altar, I haven't really been able to get an explanation on it, but so they don't stack between Sanguine and Overflowing, right? does one override the other, or will you just get the lifesteal from both? Like if my tank's running it and I'm running it,
you have one down, you're going to get the minor lifesteal. I don't believe that they stack. It's the same synergy.
Right, so the synergies don't stack, but the lifesteal does.
No, I don't. No, I don't believe that the lifesteal does.
Okay.
It's like an individual. It only affects each one. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It
right.
actually, if you have multiple altars down, they'll override each other's lifesteal. So if you look at logs of lifesteal from an individual person, it will be a fragmented little dot instead of a line. And it'll be that for everyone who has the altar. They just override each other back and forth, which is fine because you'll always be
right.
Yes,
and
you're always
no
getting
way
it.
to.
Oh, go ahead.
I think he just.
Oh, he must have disconnected.
So I have a question for VCR specifically, seeing as I've only run it once and it was a bit of a rough run. I got stuck as Kite with a Templar, so a rough first go. How many blood altars is the right amount of blood altars for VCR +1?
Honestly, the tanks, all 3 tanks should have blood altar, in my opinion. And you can add a 4th to a Warden and take a blood altar off of the tank because, again, of the minor toughness. And the healer should have bone shield. But the standard number, I believe, is 3.
I think it doesn't matter as long as you're above 1, because then everyone can have it. So 2 to whatever number, it doesn't really matter. The benefit of having multiple is tanks, the ones going downstairs, if they have it, then the downstairs group gets the lifesteal and the synergy downstairs, which is helpful. And then you want someone upstairs running it, so everyone upstairs has it at the same time.
Oh, I'm back. Okay.
Okay, freak back.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what happened there. My Discord just crapped out.
So you had some more questions about VCR, correct?
Yes, sorry. And then managing Malevolent Strike is the ability name, or the orb attack. And I know you can't block it anymore. So is the preferred way just dodge rolling when the warning comes up? And
so that cannot be avoided. You're gonna get it. And so in VCR, to me, it's like all about prep healing. Because if you're reacting in the moment, you're gonna fall behind, because if you know, when people get the dots from Malevolent Strike or from the orbs, you'll notice their health bars just like jittering, and you need to have like the regen going on. You need to have the healing springs down, a ritual, or the budding seeds, and people need to be stacked. That's what I was talking about with Cloudrest disease, is like when people start spreading out, people die. And like there have been runs where I have gotten just very firm with people, especially as group healer, like stack on the tail right now, or you're gonna die because you're not gonna be in heals. If you're in heals, all that stuff is totally manageable.
So I think then the answer to all my questions would be, don't be afraid to anticipate mechanics in VCR.
VCR is, to me, especially if you're in a progression group, it is not a DPS race. Everyone needs to follow mechanics to a T. And the biggest thing about VCR is group synergy and communication, because people need to be calling out their flares effectively. There are different ways you can do it, especially like if everyone knows each other well. Like you could say, you know, flare in the middle, and people recognize your voice. Obviously, you can say, you know, flare in the middle, also flare on the tail, and then flare on new tail. And obviously what new tail means is when Zamaja teleports to a new location, the person with the flare who's saying new tail, they're going to be on the next location, and there needs to be at least 3 people in the flare for you all to survive, and they need to be healed through that. And if their health is too low, people will die as well. You have anything to add to that, TimeWizard?
One thing about my advice for kite healing especially is don't be afraid to stay pretty close to the group. Anticipate when crushing is coming and get out to catch it, and then try and kite it as close to group as possible without getting near group, because if you do that, you can keep your springs down in a way that you can stand in it and have it on the group at the same time. And same with your other heals. They can be hitting both you and the group simultaneously.
Yes, do not stand too far away from the group. That's a great point. Because I've seen logs where the group healer and the kite healer there's a huge discrepancy, and that should not be the case. The heals should be fairly equal. And I've seen that in logs too, where the group healer and the kite healer are pretty close. Now it's okay if the kite healer is lower than the group healer because they have different tasks and jobs. But you look up some videos online. I've seen kite healers be very close to the group, and I've had experience where the kite healer is very close to the group, and that is ideal because you can keep the heals on the group. And obviously in VCR, there's a ton of outgoing damage from a ton of different sources, more so than a lot of different trials, honestly. VCR is a challenge for the healer. So are there any more questions about VCR?
Yeah, just a quick one. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like what you said about not being too far away from the group. So would you say that the kite healer needs to be maybe just on the other side of where the portals?
I actually stay closer than that. I stay just behind the group. And then what you have to do is make sure that you're the farthest person back and always position yourself according to the tail. And that way you can stay really close to the group and still get kite.
Yeah, so the thing is, the crushing will go to the person that's farthest away. And so all you need to do is just be the farthest person away. So that means you can stay relatively close to the group. Just as long as like everyone's stacked and DPS isn't spread out, because that's where things can get really bad and other people will get crushing darkness, is like when they get into your quote unquote area.
Yeah, that's what I have encountered. And so, I'd always stayed, further back, because.
So the healers need to be very commanding in the trial, especially the group healer, where they need to be stacked. And all the groups I've been in, they put the crown on the healer, on the group healer, and the group healer is the commander of the stack. And you stack on the tail always. And what needs to happen is, like, when a creeper comes up, when orbs come up, the group should not go beyond the portal. They should stay within that range and just range the orbs down and range the creepers down.
So just rotate.
Is there kind of
I think he
a
disconnected.
tell on when there's going to be the next crush? Like, is it timer based?
It's timer based.
Is it?
It's
Oh,
like
okay.
in Zamaja's rotation. She'll do some sort of wavy hand motion that the main tank can see. But then you'll also start seeing a telegraph start to form near you, in front of you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, my Discord is going in and out.
that's fine.
Yeah, mine is
I'd also like to add that there's an added benefit of the Kite Healer being closer to the group rather than being far away. Because your mini-bosses, Sororia, Gallonway, and Reliquin, they all port away to the furthest person. So imagine your healer being on the way opposite side of the room. That means after they port, their timer for the next port's already ticking as they walk back to the group, which means your group won't be able to DPS those mini-bosses down during the Zamaja fight as quickly as other groups. So that's a pretty big bonus of having the Kite Healer closer to the group rather than completely far away.
Thank you. That makes sense.
And those minis need to go down as fast as possible. And like when I would suggest having, Warden or Templar are interchangeable as far as the roles. Like you can be a Templar and be a Kite Healer or a Warden. Both are effective in their own ways. The big thing is like debuffs from both healers. Podle from the Templar, and now minor vulnerability with the flies. So make sure you're always debuffing the minis. They will go down so much faster.
Do you have any recommendations for sets this patch on Group Healer and Kite Healer?
Yes. So I would suggest the Group Healer be in Eben and Olo. The reason for that is Eben will always be on the group. It is a big radius, but if you're with the group, everyone is going to get that health bonus, which is essential for the group in VCR. Everyone needs more health in there. And I would suggest that everyone, at least be between 18 and 20k health. Like put a health enchant or prismatic defense, or just do whatever you can to get as much health as possible without sacrificing too much of your other things in your toolkit, like your DPS. So, and then for the Kite Healer, I would suggest that they wear Worm, and I think that Holofang is really great in VCR because Mag is optimal for VCR, and that Worm and Holofang give amazing sustain. And sustain, as we all know, is awful this patch because they increase the cost of so many abilities. And Holofang also gives you minor vitality, which increases the healing received by 8%. Which is also that's obviously a great thing for VCR, but you can also switch those sets around, except the Group Healer always need to be in Eben. You could put an off-tank in Eben, but that'll take away from debuffs they could provide from Torug's and Alkosh. So I would always suggest that the Group Healer be in Eben.
I actually disagree with that. I think this patch, with the sets I would recommend, is Group Healer in MK and Zens, and Kite Healer in Holofang and Olo, because that way you have all of the buffs and debuffs that can be provided from healers, and you have Holofang is more than enough sustain. You don't need War. You have Holofang, and then you put Eben on the mini tank, because both MK and Zens provide greater debuffs than Tor.
That is true, that the debuff from Zens is probably one of the strongest debuffs in the game right now. And if you can master with MK, like martial knowledge, the best way to maintain martial knowledge is to bash weave, in my opinion. So if you can provide those debuffs consistently, then that would be very, very optimal. And the part I disagree with what you said is just, I think when you are in a progression group, maybe Zen and MK are not the direction to go. I think that if the group is really, really solid on mechanics, then you can apply those debuffs. That's just my perspective, though.
I think it depends who's progressing, too. You can wear debuff sets in a progression group if the healer knows how to use them.
Yes.
If the healer is progressing, then I wouldn't recommend.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I think it's important to understand what the sets do. So let's look at Zen's. So Zen, you get magic recovery, spell damage, and magicka, which is great. So your light attacks apply the touch of Zen on enemies for 20 seconds, which then allows you to apply dots. Enemies with the touch of Zen take an additional 1% more damage for each damage over time effect you've placed on them, up to 5%. You can only receive the benefit from one touch of Zen per enemy. So this is a great debuff to apply on the minis and Zamaja. But if you want to get the most out of it, you need to make sure your uptimes on the dots are there. And what that requires you to be is more of like a DPS, where you're light attack weaving and you are applying dots just like a DPS. And for everyone watching and listening, what made me a better healer in this game is when I started DPSing, when I started parsing, because it makes you more aware. It makes you more paying attention to the dots and the timers, and it makes you a little more aggressive. I've encountered situations where where healers, their debuffs and buffs fall short for whatever reason. But when I started DPSing, I became a stronger healer. And I've seen DPS switch over to healing, and they're just amazing at it because they have that mindset of keeping up times and just being a little more aggressive. So, just a side note, I would start DPSing, parsing more, and I promise you, you will become a better healer. You will see. So back to Zen and with progression groups, just to kind of summarize that, if the healer is progressing like TimeWizard said, then it's probably not optimal. But if you can use Zen, do it, because it is so effective and the debuff is really, really strong. Because you put that on top of the minor vulnerability and minor fracture, major fracture, all the other debuffs, it's really, really strong. So yes, I'm back. What's going on?
We were talking about what sets to decon now.
So what sets do you guys think need to be decon? Curious.
Spell power cure.
Spell power cure.
Oh my god, spell power cure! Put that shit away. Olo is far superior.
All right, I'm marking through that one. Okay, and you said Sanctuary.
It's pretty useless.
Yeah.
I'd keep a set just in case if you have one, but it's useless.
Okay, so I will strike through that. I'm so glad I'm talking to you.
The thing with Sanctuary is, like, it's not bad. It's just there are other sets that are so much better. There's so much more utility for the group, and you just don't need it. If you're properly healing, you don't need Sanctuary at all. Plus, the radius is only 10 meters, which is very small.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because you were mentioning Jorvolds, and I started wearing that long before a lot of other healers were wearing it. So I'm really glad that you're suggesting it.
Yeah, Yorvold is plus Yorvold is an offensive set because it provides a longer Warhorn, and Warhorn increases your stats and increases the major force for longer, so you get more DPS.
So I have a question then about the whole sets thing. So the battle right now of Infallible Aether with Fetcher Swarm.
What about
like for me? It's just easier to not the battle. It was a bad way to fucking word it, but it's just easier for me to apply Aether and have an open skill slot on my bar.
But you're talking about a skill slot versus a 5 set. A 5-piece set that you could have something else that provides.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
exactly. Plus, Infallible Aether is now a nightmare to apply because what it used to be was you could apply it so easily with a medium attack with your staff. They took that away from the lightning staff, and then secretly, like sneakily, took that away from the rest of staff too. So now it takes more time to apply Infallible Aether. Where when you have a Warden in the group, you can just apply flies immediately.
That's fair enough. I think it's just I'm just so used to using it.
Right.
What about that Ventus and from Sunspire?
That to me is useless. If you want sustain, put Persines, put Worm, Hollow Fang. Those sets are way more effective. They're consistent. Navintas just. I have never used Navintas since it came out. Have you got?
The one place where Navintas is actually okay is in trash fights when sustain is shit. And you already have either Worm or her there.
That's if the trash fights are taking a longer time to take down.
If people sustain is shit in trash fights, with which it shouldn't. That is the only time where Navintas is anything other than garbage.
Yeah, I'm not going to keep it then.
I have pretty much every possible set that can have, and I included one set of that just because, but I've used it once, and that was in a group where trash was taking a while and people were pushing it so heavy that their sustain was shit, and they could tell the difference between Ventas and not, but I haven't used it since then.
Yep.
Would you consider it kind of an alternative to Mend?
Instead of using an alternative set instead of mending?
Yeah, like I know some people like mending for VSO is the only time I hear it mentioned, but maybe there's some other spot.
Mending is if you need the defensive set to debuff the enemy spell damage and whatnot, mending is still the best set to do that.
I would say
it's not needed very often.
I would say Sanctum Ophidia, Halls of Fabrication for the last boss if you're doing hard mode, and
yes.
There's one more. Hold on, I'm trying to think. There's one more. Holy shit.
I mean, I've looked at logs and seen great healers use it in VCR. Again, if you're healing effectively in there, you don't necessarily need it. But yeah, VSO and Halls is where I've used mending the most.
There's one more. It's just slipping my mind.
VMAL?
No, not VMAL.
No, not VMAL.
Just one more. I'm forgetting it for some reason. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Trash and HRC?
No. I'll think about it. Hold on. I gotta think about it again.
Yeah.
VAA hard mode?
No.
Trying to think of everywhere I've ever heard people use mending.
Yeah, same here.
I got it. Sorry, Black Rose Prison. My bad.
Oh yeah, there.
Yeah, that's a great spot.
Mending and trash there.
So, are there any pressing questions you guys have about sets, about communication, or about anything else that we can answer?
Well, no, for me, I mean, just getting rid of some sets that, so that helps me with my bank space. I'm so happy.
Yeah, I would put Spell Power Cure away. I would put Sanctuary away. I can't remember the last time I used Sanctuary. Otherwise, there are just better sets to use. That's the point. Like, there's more utility, there's more effectiveness. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just better sets to use that will. It might seem like kind of risky at the time when you put it on, but in the long run, using other sets that are less safe, quote unquote, are better.
Mm-hmm. That's so helpful.
One of the healers that I'm with uses Gossamer. Is that?
Oh, Gossamer is amazing, in my personal opinion. Yeah, Gossamer is definitely worth it. I've actually used that in halls. I've used that in Loki hard mode. Again, like, it's not totally necessary, but I've been impressed with Gossamer in those particular situations. Where there's so much outgoing damage, but they did nerf the beam in Loki hard mode, so maybe Gossamer is if you pop a barrier in the two separate groups in Loki hard mode when the beam comes through, you should be just fine. Each healer pops a barrier, and you keep healing the group. It should be just fine. But if you're in a group where people are unfamiliar with mechanics, or if you're struggling a little bit, Gossamer is, to me, one of the best damage reduction sets, along with Mending. Does anyone else have had experience with using Gossamer? It's kind of an underrated set, in my opinion.
Where do you get it?
You get it from Cradle of Shadows.
Okay.
I definitely
haven't used it very much, just because most of the time I'm in groups where we're not trying to mitigate damage with sets, we're trying to boost damage.
That's right. Because, like,
it's definitely if you do need the damage mitigation, it is one of the 2 good sets to wear on a healer.
I've used that in again, Halls of Fabrication, like during trash fights. It's wonderful. And also for the last boss, the Assembly General hard mode, it's proven to be very, very effective. There's so much area of effect damage going on in hard mode Halls of Fabrication.
So, what set do you wear with it?
With Gossamer, it depends on what your other healer is wearing. You could wear Gossamer with anything, really. It depends on, like, where if the group healer in halls, which stays with the group. There's also the Kite Healer who kites the flame upstairs. Honestly, in my experience, either healer could wear it, and you could pair it with whatever you want. I would suggest that the healer that's down in the trench, that depends on the strategy you're using, because in the Assembly General, there's, 3 different strategies I've used, and the basic 2 strategies are everyone stays up top or everyone stays in the trench. Are there any other strategies that you guys have used for halls?
In the trench, but ranged bow, but that's like kind of a niche thing.
Yeah. So
I would not recommend Armor Strat, personally.
I would recommend the Trench Strat, personally. I found that to be more effective. The strategy up top is more problematic for healing anyway, and I believe the Trench strategy is more effective. And Gossamer has saved so many people dying in there.
Okay, so you can wear it with anything, but what are you wearing it with in Halls of Fabrication?
I have paired Gossamer as the Kite Healer with. I've actually paired it with Mending once. I've paired it with Olo once, because you just need to place it. You need to place Olo just near the group. I've worn Gossamer with Yorvold. See, this is the thing. This is the point about communication, is that you need to coordinate with the other healer, like what sets they have, what they're able to wear. I would suggest getting everything the jewels, the weapons, and the body pieces. Yeah. So Gossamer, I mean, if you look at the set, when you heal yourself or an ally, you grant them major evasion for 2.8 seconds. So again, that's with Yorvold. So major evasion, you get slightly more because it's a major buff. And so reducing damage.
What I'm looking at right there, it says Cold Harbor. That's it?
Cold Harbor?
Yeah. Is that what you're describing? Oh, there you go. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, the stream is a little bit delayed. So yeah, Gossamer, if you want the most out of it, you pair it with Yorvold, longer Warhorn, longer major evasion. And so you could pair Gossamer with Yorvold, absolutely.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But just remember, like, it's all about communicating with the healer, and it's so shocking to me how much I've gone into so many pugs and so many runs where the healer does not communicate with me. Like, what sets are you wearing? and I've tried even asking the group, like, are you Stam or Mag? Please type X if you're Stam or whatever. And then no one says anything. It's like,
okay. They sit there and bitch about sustain nonstop.
It happens to me all the time when I'm reaching out to the healer and I'm like, I'm the second healer. What are you going to be wearing? And they don't ever answer. And I'm like, are you a Warden or a Templar? You know, because I want to try to be the other one.
Yes.
So that we can bring both. And it's so frustrating.
I know. I honestly, guys, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink. Like, I have tried so many times where, hey, what sets are you wearing? Or, hey, I'm running these sets right now. Is that cool with you? And if they don't answer, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to say. There's no really effective way to get them to say anything. I mean, like, how can you can only control yourself, right? So it's what I've done is just after the first mob fight, if they're wearing Olo, I'm like, okay, wearing Olo, I'll put something else on. I look for the blue bubbles, the green bubbles, and I also just look at if people have a staff on, if they have a bow or a two-hander. If no one is saying anything, which is mostly the case, I'll just look around and see what weapons people have, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I do, because I have found that communication is more challenging than it needs to be in the game.
Yeah, I know. I just did, just a normal Sunspire today, and I tried to reach out to the healer, and he wasn't answering. And So, we go ahead and pour it in, and he's a Templar and I'm on my Templar. And I just said, I'll be right back. I'm changing to my Warden.
Good. Change to your Warden. Yeah.
Yeah, because, and then I found out that he doesn't even have any orbs. So I was having to orb the whole group.
See, and you're going to run into so many situations like that. And all you can, if they're not communicative, like, you just need to just observe what they're doing and then just adapt. That's the thing. That's so much about healing is adapting to your situation. And like, if people are spread out, you're not in Discord together, like, you just have to adapt. And I've been in hundreds of situations like that where it's like everyone is spread out, people are unfamiliar with mechanics, and you just have to adapt the best you can and see where people are going, see where people are placed, and adapt to the situation. And that's such an in the moment thing that I can't really articulate or describe. And that's like the adventure of being a healer, is this adaptation that you need to take upon yourself. So does that make sense to everybody? You've all experienced this.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you have.
But if you have like a great group, then you can like wear Zens and have a lot more fun, or wear other sets that that would be more optimal for the group, instead of going so defensive. Because the more defensive you are, the longer the fights are. But if you go more offensive, then you'll get through trash mobs more quickly. You'll get through boss fights more quickly. And it's about supporting the group and finding which sets are optimal in that particular situation. In Nephis' Tank 101 class, he kept saying what you need and what you want, and the two things are a little bit different, and you need to just figure out what your group needs in that moment. And that's also a part of the healing adventure, right? And you just need to have that mindset of flexibility.
Well, I'm getting better, Nephis. I slotted that staff on the back bar and got rid of my sword and board. Getting better.
So I have a bit of a probably loaded question, but when you're running with either not a potato second healer that actually answers you and communicates, or a group that's not a pug, so you actually kind of have an idea of who is running Ellie Drain, who is running what sets, whatever. What should you be actually communicating while you are healing a boss fight?
Okay, all that stuff should be sorted out before you go into a trial. Hey, are you running Ellie Drain? Would you mind running Ellie Drain? I have this slot. I have this skill I need to run. Hey, would you mind running Blood Altar? I need to, it's stuff like that. It's all, you don't want to figure that stuff out during the...
There is some communication, but not a lot that can happen during a boss fight. Things like, if you want, say, on Fire boss in VSS, you might want to communicate with your other healer if, for instance, your side has Flare in a time stop on hard mode, and you want to say something like, I need more healing on this side, please, or just things like that. Things that are slightly out of the norm. But the bulk of the communication happens before the trial ever starts.
So
Yes, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, myself and the other healer, the only thing we really do is like one of us does blockade and one of us does LA drain, depending on which fight it is and what position we are. But do you always use blockade, or because I didn't hear you mention it earlier?
Oh, I use blockade on both I think both healers should use it because it procs your enchants. And it also has a chance of applying it. So the way it works is when you cast, you need to have a lightning staff to do this. It procs concussed, which can also apply off balance, which then applies minor vulnerability. So that increases your uptime of minor vulnerability. And if I explain that wrong, please correct me, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, no, I know that, but both healers need to have it then. Like even if we're like focusing on like say it's just that we're both by the one boss, we both need to have blockade.
It's useful for both to have blockade.
Exactly. Yeah, it's useful for both because it procs your enchant. Like if let's say you have a weakening enchant on your back bar or a berserker enchant, then you apply elemental blockade and it'll just keep proccing your enchant. It's such a useful skill to have.
Okay, so should we have different enchants from each other?
That's a really great question. From my understanding, enchants, if you have so the tank usually has a crusher in, so you don't want that unless you're running Torugs as a healer. And you want to have a lightning staff, an infused lightning staff when you run Torugs. And let's say, because enchants can, they get in the way of each other. So if you have an infused, let's say, let's just run a quick scenario. Let's say the tank has a crusher enchant and it's not infused, and the healer has a crusher enchant that is with an infused lightning staff. The lower enchant, which is 348 versus 452, the lower enchant will take priority over the higher enchant.
That is incorrect.
That is incorrect?
Yeah. The higher enchant takes priority over the lower enchant.
I've heard the opposite, so I'm glad that you have corrected that for everyone to hear. So I'm wrong. So another enchant that you can use is Weakening instead of Crusher. You could also run a weapon damage enchant to boost your heals up. But that's something that you can also coordinate with your other healer if you need to, and with the tanks too. That's something I haven't experienced that often because no one communicates.
A good go-to enchant, if you don't need something else, is a shock enchant. Because it procs concussed. And if concussed is on the boss and the lightning blockade is down, it'll be off balanced if the timer's up for it.
Okay.
Other enchants you might run are poison and flame enchants, but that's specifically if you're running Zens, because they count as dots.
Yes, they do count as dots. That is correct.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
My go-to enchants are Shock back bar and Berserker front bar, but it changes depending on if I need to run something else.
Yes, it all depends on what you're running and what the group needs. Also, it's really important to think about what was I going to say? Yes, you need to light attack weave as a healer. That's not just for DPS, because that is another way for you to contribute to damage, and it helps proc both of your enchants. I would get into the habit of light attack weaving in between skills as much as you can. Did someone say something? Okay, no? All right. So are there any other questions? We're at an hour and 17 minutes. But I'm here for you guys. So
thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
I have a
I missed a bunch because my Discord wasn't
Oh, okay.
I got at least half.
Yeah, if you want to check out this will be on my Twitch stream. You can just like check that out, watch the video whenever you want.
Cool.
But like I'm so grateful for TimeWizard being here to share her experience too, and to correct my F-ups. And because she's so experienced, she's one of the best healers in the game, in my opinion. Can you handle that, TimeWizard? And no, she's someone that has been inspiration to me, along with like other healers like Style Anima, Sophie. There are so many great healers in this game, and one of my dear friends, Maddie, is like a really great healer on the oceanic side of things. But I would definitely keep an eye on all those healers. And you guys, I'm so grateful to just like present this stream for the first time. And if you have any other questions for me, like please DM me. I would love to help you. Sorry, what was that? Seems like someone's cutting in and out, but
No, it was just my sister. She came into the room.
oh, okay. So, you guys, thank you so much for being here, and feel free to always reach out. I'm constantly learning myself. It's a journey, just like life. So, just like keep on keeping on in your journey as a healer in this game, and you'll figure out things on your own, like what your group needs. And hopefully I'll do another stream very soon. And yeah, thank you all so much.
Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, guys. So have a great night.
You too.